In the heart of the 13th century, the Kingdom of Hungary stood as a bastion of Christian Europe, largely unaware of the storm gathering far to the east. King Bela IV, a ruler beset by internal strife with his powerful nobles, had received fragmented and disturbing reports of a new, unstoppable force. These were the Mongols, the horsemen of the apocalypse, who had already shattered the great Kievan Rus. Their leader, Batu Khan, grandson of the legendary Genghis Khan, was driven by a mandate to conquer the lands of the setting sun. By his side was the military genius, Subutai, the true architect of the European invasion and a general of unparalleled cunning. A pretext for invasion arose when King Bela granted asylum to the Cumans, a nomadic people fleeing the relentless Mongol advance. Batu Khan sent an ultimatum to the Hungarian king, demanding the return of the Cumans, whom he considered his escaped slaves. King Bela IV refused, sealing his kingdom's fate and setting the stage for a monumental confrontation. The Mongol war machine moved with terrifying speed and coordination, a multi-pronged assault designed to isolate and crush Hungary. One Mongol army swung north into Poland, ensuring no Polish reinforcements could aid the Hungarians. They would achieve a devastating victory at the Battle of Legnica just 2 days before the main event in Hungary. Another force swept south through Transylvania, cutting off another potential avenue of support. Main army, under Batu and Subutai, drove directly towards the heart of Hungary, an unstoppable river of men and horses. King Bela IV hastily summoned his banas, calling upon the reluctant and factious nobility to fulfill their feudal obligations. The resulting Hungarian army was a magnificent but unwieldy force, a sea of shining armor and colorful banners. It was composed primarily of heavily armored knights, whose battlefield doctrine relied on a single, decisive charge. They were supported by lighter cavalry and levies of infantry, but the knights were the proud core of the army. The Hungarians advanced to meet the invaders, making their stand on the western bank of the Sajó River. They established a large, fortified camp on the plain of Mohi, using their wagons as a makeshift wall. The only crossing point was a long stone bridge, which the Hungarians intended to hold at all costs. This defensive posture seemed logical, forcing the Mongols into a bottleneck at the bridge. On the night of April 10th, the Mongol vanguard made its move, attempting to storm the bridge under the cover of darkness. A strong Hungarian contingent, led by the king's brother, Koloman and Archbishop Ogrin, met them head-on. The Hungarian crossbowmen proved devastatingly effective in the tight confines of the bridge. Their heavy bolts punched through the lighter Mongol armor, repelling the initial assault with significant losses for the attackers. The Mongols were pushed back across the river, and the Hungarians roared in triumph. Believing the threat had been neutralized for the night, the bulk of the Hungarian defenders returned to their camp. They left only a small guard to watch the bridge, a fatal and arrogant miscalculation. The initial attack had been merely a probe, a distraction orchestrated by the master tactician, Subutai D. Kot. While the Hungarians celebrated their premature victory, Subutai was already setting his true plan in motion. He took a large contingent of his forces and moved south along the river, hidden by the darkness and terrain. His objective was to find an unguarded crossing point and outflank the entire Hungarian army. By dawn, Subutai's flanking force had successfully crossed the river and was moving into position to encircle the Hungarian camp. Simultaneously, Batu Khan launched a renewed, massive frontal assault on the bridge. This time, the Mongols brought forward their terrifying siege engines, giant catapults that could hurl massive stones. The Hungarian guards on the bridge were quickly overwhelmed by the sheer number of attackers and the bombardment. As the main Hungarian army scrambled to form ranks to meet the threat from the bridge, disaster struck from the rear. Subutais horsemen slammed into the flank and rear of the unprepared Hungarian camp. Panic erupted within the crowded confines of the wagon lager. The Hungarians were now trapped, caught between Batu's army at the bridge and Subutais' forces surrounding them. The Mongols used flaming arrows and incendiary projectiles, setting the Hungarian tents ablaze. The smoke and fire added to the confusion and terror, choking the defenders. The heavily armored knights, so formidable in an open field charge, were now at a severe disadvantage. They were slow, clumsy, and unable to form a cohesive charge within the burning, chaotic camp. The Mongol horse archers rode in circles around the camp, raining down an unending storm of arrows. Discipline within the Hungarian ranks completely disintegrated. It was no longer a battle. It was a slaughter. And Subutai employed his final, cruel psychological masterstroke. He ordered his troops to deliberately open a gap in their encirclement on the western side. This gap appeared to be a route of escape for the terrified, broken Hungarian soldiers. Hope, even a sliver of it, can be the most dangerous trap of all. The Hungarian formations dissolved completely as soldiers threw down their weapons and ran for this opening. Knights, infantry, and camp followers all streamed through the gap in a desperate, panicked flood. This was exactly what the Mongols had anticipated. Once the fleeing Hungarians were strung out on the open plain, the trap was sprung. The Mongol horsemen, fresh and organized, fell upon the exhausted and unarmed fugitives. The pursuit turned into a running massacre that lasted for miles. For 2 days, the Mongols hunted down and killed almost everyone who had fled the camp. The plain of Mohi and the roads leading from it were turned into a vast graveyard. King Bela IV himself barely managed to escape the carnage, fleeing the battlefield with a small retinue. His brother, Duke Koloman, was grievously wounded and would die shortly after. Archbishop Ugarin, the Templar master, and countless other high-ranking nobles lay dead on the field. The entire royal army of Hungary had been annihilated in a single day. The Battle of Mohi was over, but the suffering of Hungary had just begun. With no army left to oppose them, the Mongol hordes fanned out across the kingdom. They systematically pillaged, burned and destroyed every town and village they came across. The great Hungarian plain, the fertile heartland of the kingdom, was utterly devastated. The population was subjected to unimaginable horrors and mass slaughter. It is estimated that up to a quarter of Hungary's population perished during the year of Mongol occupation. King Bela IV became a fugitive in his own kingdom, hunted by Mongol detachments. He eventually fled to the castle of Tra on an island off the Dalmatian coast. The Mongols, under Kadan, pursued him even there, a testament to their relentless determination. For nearly a year, Hungary was a province of the Mongol Empire, its future hanging by a thread. The rest of Europe looked on in terror, expecting the tide of horsemen to continue its westward surge. Then, as suddenly as they had arrived, the Mongols departed. News had arrived from the distant capital of Karakorum. The great Khan, Ögedei, was dead. Imperial tradition demanded that all princes of the bloodline return to elect a new Kagan. This event, a political necessity in a faraway land, was the salvation of Europe. King Bela IV returned to a kingdom that was in ruins, a land of ghosts and ashes. He would become known as the second founder of the homeland for his efforts to rebuild. He learned the bitter lesson of Mohi. Earthen walls and open field armies were no match for the Mongols. He initiated a massive program of castle building, encouraging his nobles to erect stone fortifications across the land. The Battle of Mohi was a catastrophic defeat, but it was also a crucible from which a stronger, more resilient Hungary would emerge. The memory of the Tatararas, the Tartar devastation, would be seared into the Hungarian national consciousness forever. The clash on the Sagyó River was a brutal lesson in the changing nature of warfare. It demonstrated the superiority of mobility, coordination, and ruthless strategy over brute force and chivalric pride. The names of Batu Khan and Subutai would echo in European history as figures of terror and military genius. The Hungarian knights who fell at Mohi were brave, but their bravery was not enough. They faced an army that moved like a single organism, directed by one of the greatest military minds in history. The feigned retreat, a classic Mongol tactic, had been executed to devastating perfection. The psychological impact of the defeat was as profound as the physical destruction. It shattered the illusion of the invincibility of the European heavy knight. The river itself, the Sagyó, became a symbol of the kingdom's broken defense. The wagon lager, intended as a fortress, had become a fiery death trap. The sound of Mongol drums and horns became a sound of impending doom. The speed of the Mongol advance had been simply incomprehensible to the European commanders. Their intelligence network, based on scouts and spies, was vastly superior. Every Hungarian weakness, from political division to tactical predictability, was exploited. The initial victory at the bridge had bred a fatal overconfidence. The Mongols' use of engineers to build a bridge overnight was a logistical marvel. The encirclement was a classic example of Subutai's strategic brilliance, honed over decades of warfare. The sheer volume of arrows fired by the Mongol horse archers was described as a black cloud that blocked the sun. Its relentless barrage broke the will of even the most veteran soldiers. The escape gap was a stroke of genius, turning the enemy's survival instinct into a weapon against them. The pursuit phase of the battle was where the majority of the casualties occurred. The Mongols' stamina, both of the men and their hardy ponies, was legendary. They could cover vast distances and fight for days with minimal rest. The destruction of the Hungarian kingdom was so complete that many believed it could never recover. Béla's subsequent reforms were a direct response to the trauma of this invasion. He invited settlers from Germany and other parts of Europe to repopulate the devastated lands. The new stone castles became the backbone of a new defensive strategy. The Mongol threat did not vanish entirely. The Golden Horde remained a power on Hungary's border for generations. But never again would they penetrate so deeply or so devastatingly into the heart of the kingdom. The Battle of Mohi served as a brutal, bloody wake-up call for all of Europe. It highlighted the vulnerability of feudal armies to a more modern, mobile, and centrally commanded force. The sacrifice of the Hungarian army, while catastrophic, bought the rest of the continent precious time. The death of a distant emperor in Mongolia saved the thrones of kings in Paris, Vienna, and Rome. The story of the battle would be told and retold, a cautionary tale of pride, underestimation, and the terrible cost of defeat. The wind blowing across the quiet plain of Mohi today carries with it the echoes of that terrible day. The Mongol invasion began with the Veraki Pass being breached in March. King Béla had forbidden his men to attack the invaders, hoping to fight them with his full army. This strategy allowed the Mongols to advance unhindered deep into his territory. The Hungarian army that gathered was enormous, numbering perhaps as many as 100,000 men. Yet, it was a force plagued by distrust between the king and his powerful vassals. The Mongols, though outnumbered, possessed superior discipline and unity of command. The night before the battle, a captured Ruthenian slave escaped to the Hungarian camp. He warned them that the Mongols intended a night attack to cross the river. This warning prompted Koloman and Archbishop Ugrin to guard the bridge, leading to their initial success. The 7 stone-throwing catapults used by Batu were a key factor in clearing the bridge. The noise of the Mongol attack was said to be like thunder, a combination of drums, horns, and war cries. Many Hungarian soldiers were killed by their own comrades in the panic stampede to escape. Swampy terrain of the battlefield hindered the heavily armored knights more than the light Mongol cavalry. The Mongols' composite bows had a longer range and faster firing rate than the European bows. King Bela's escape was harrowing. He was forced to abandon the royal seal to distract his pursuers. The Templar Knights in the Hungarian army fought with incredible bravery until the very last man was killed. The aftermath saw the Mongols create a wilderness in eastern Hungary, a depopulated buffer zone. The invasion revealed that even the most formidable natural barriers, like the Carpathian Mountains, could not stop the Mongols. The battle remains a cornerstone of Hungarian military history and national identity.